The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Chris, and I got to tell you about Expedition Roasters. Listen, I'm a pretty big coffee drinker, just like a lot of you are, but these people have got coffee right. Their coffees are made from selectively sourced premium and specialty grade Arabica beans. They provide the absolute best flavor and aroma, and select roasts even come directly from a single estate farm for a truly perfect cup that is never bitter. They've got awesome Disney-inspired flavors such as Roundhouse Roast, Route 66, Skipper's Brew, Dark Side Roast, Redhead Rum, and one of my favorites, Bobsledder's Brew. Listen, if you want to have the taste of Disney in every cup, give them a try today. Expeditionroasters.com, and Behind the Ears podcast listeners gets an extra 20% off your first order by using the coupon code EARS20. That's right, EARS20. And you can find them over at Expeditionroasters.com. Brew your happy place. Do you want to save around 40% off Disney's prices for deluxe on-property accommodations? Contact dvc-rental.com. They help out Disney Vacation Club owners rent out points that they're not going to use. These points mean savings for you on your next trip at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Vero Beach, Florida, and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. The DVC member books everything in your name, just like any other reservation. And if you ever decide that you want to become a DVC member, you can check out our sister company, BuyAndSellDVC.com. As a licensed realtor, they sell DVC contracts for members at a savings of 30 to 40% off Disney's prices. And if you're looking to sell your contract, BuyAndSellDVC.com has one of the industry's lowest commissions at only 6.5%. Again, that's DVC-rental.com for your rental needs, and BuyAndSellDVC.com to buy or sell into the Disney Vacation Club at a large discount. And make sure you tell them that the Behind Ears podcast crew sent you. You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. And welcome back to another episode of the Behind Ears podcast. How is everybody doing tonight? I'm Mr. Chris. You are our fabulous audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. I almost said tonight, but then I decided to say today, which came out funky. Oh, yeah. It's been an absolutely crazy week. I'm going to tell you that right now. Today was one of those days where I actually stayed off of social media. Not because I really wanted to. I just didn't have the time. And I really, honestly, it's amazing on how much I have to catch up on. And so I know there's been a lot of people messaging me today, and I really certainly appreciate that. But man, I just have not had a chance to do anything outside of work. It has been going ever since I got up this morning. And it's just absolutely just insane. But you know what? Today is my Friday. Granted, it's the Thursday night recording session. But I'm kind of sitting here going, tomorrow's Friday. I got the day off. One of the last few days I have to, kind of use or lose, as the case may be. So, I'm just going to go ahead and enjoy it. I'm going to go spend some time with my wife, go out to lunch. It's going to be just one of those cases. So first I want to give a shout out to Scott, who's out at Disney right now. He basically said so many people have commented about the BTEP buttons we've been wearing, asking how do we get to hear it. Also told that they have family who watch it. and they're trying to get the word out. Thank you so much, Scott. I hope you and your family are having an absolutely magical time out there. I've been following your different feeds, your different live feeds as well. It's just really been absolutely super awesome. So, but I have to agree with Mary. Even though I've only worked 4 days, it seems like it's been such a long week. And there's probably a very good chance that I may still have to do some work over the weekend, but that's okay. But for tonight, we're going to go ahead, put aside work, put aside stress. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun discussion tonight. And we're going to do it through a little bit of a game. For those of you who may recall the game from, Bill, it's kind of an old game, to be honest with you. And it's a video game you can play on your computer. They also had available for PS2 as well as Xbox and stuff like that. And it was kind of a party game, a little bit more on the adult side, called You Don't Know Jack. Well, during You Don't Know Jack, they had this section. It was really kind of fun. It was kind of a quick draw type section called Dis or Dat. And you had to pick something between two items, something that matched the clue closely. It's kind of a fun game, but we're not going to play that specifically. But I thought, hey, we can play a little bit of a game, so to speak, of this or that by picking a couple different things out of a single category. Now, as we discuss this, I would probably say, let's stick to what the choices are. And we can talk a little bit afterwards about the different things that we're discussing. It should be kind of fun. So let's kind of check this out. So again, I'm going to mention a couple different things. Which one would you rather do? Which one would you rather experience? Which one would you choose if you had no other choices? Okay, let's start with an easy one, shall we? We shall. How about this? This is what I like. How about if you had a choice of only between the Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar or a Mickey-shaped Rice Krispie treat? Okay, Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar or Rice Krispie shaped like Mickey. What would be your choice? Now, I kind of gave this some thought myself, and here's my problem. And I'm going to use my logic. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I always love a good Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar. I don't know what it is about those things. And after our first trip, we searched high and low to try to find an ice cream bar that came close, even though it wasn't a Mickey-shaped ice cream bar. Found out that the Dove ice cream bars were very, very close. Now, they had milk chocolate and they had dark chocolate. The problem of it is that the dark was too dark and the light chocolate was too light. The ones for Mickey, they seem to be right in the middle. So that's okay. We would go ahead and try those out. I would pick, I'll tell you after we see what some of these people say here, some of our wonderful listening audience, some of our wonderful listening family. Let's see. Mary says ice cream bar. Justin says treat, which I'm assuming means the Mickey Rice Krispie treat. Chris, he's allergic to chocolate, so Rice Krispie, because that's what he would do. Cheryl goes ice cream bar. Let's see. Mallory's ice cream bar. Sandy is ice cream bar. Albert is ice cream bar. Wow, I'm seeing a pattern here. Rhonda, Mickey ice cream bar. Jerry ice cream bar. Leslie ice cream bar. But Toby from Mallory's son says he likes the Mickey shaped Rice Krispie treats. Oh, okay, there you go. Mickey ice cream bar. Brian says not ice cream right now. Okay. And Margie says ice cream bar. That's kind of neat. Tracy, you say Mickey pretzel. Close, but we're only going to compare the other two. Although, seriously, Mickey pretzels. Oh, gosh. So good. Actually, I'll tell you. Before I tell you what I like, I'll use this as an honorable mention, so to speak. I love the big, gigantic pretzels over at the Germany Pavilion at Epcot. Oh, one of those pretzels plus and I can't pronounce the name. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name, but it's the grapefruit beer that they have over there. Oh my gosh. Seriously. One of my best friends and I went out there and we split one of those things thinking, hey, we'll go ahead and split the beer, split the pretzel. And when we were done, we're like, oh, that was so good. You want to do it again? We both kind of looked at each other like, oh, nope, there's our wives. Can't do it. So it's one of those things. Claudia basically says, because I'm that hot weather who wouldn't want, because of the hot weather, who wouldn't want some cold ice cream? Hey, I eat ice cream in the wintertime. It's no big deal for me. So, you guys are probably thinking, well, Mr. Chris, what would you choose? Good choice. I'm going to say this. Give me a good Rice Krispie treat. And I'll tell you why. Because I like to get the big, huge Rice Krispie treat. And I like to take it home and then eat it little by little. You can't really do that with an ice cream bar. Sorry to say. I'm a big snack kind of guy. And I love ice cream. I know I shouldn't eat it. I shouldn't eat it in the quantities that I want to eat it in. But there's something about getting that Mickey Premium ice cream bar. And no matter if it's colder or hotter than heck, and I say colder like around Disney, if it's in the 60s, it's considered cold in some cases. I love just taking that bite out of that ear. There's something about it. And you all know what happens. The chocolate cracks and breaks, and you kind of have to catch a piece or two as it falls off. It happens. We all know it does. And then, of course, your family members, all who got something different, they're like, oh, can I have a bite of the other ear? So that happens. But overall, I think for longer lasting and even better value, dare I say, I go over to the Rice Krispie treat myself. That way I can take it home. And that's what I say. Let's see. Chris actually, I like this. I like what Chris says here. Pretzels after park closing, if they've made too many, because they usually give them out for free. Lol. If it's free, it's for me. I like that, Chris. I've never had that experience, so we'll have to see. Sandy mentioned what I was mentioning before. What kind of beer did I say? Well, I always get it wrong. It starts with like an H. It's like Hoffen something. I can't pronounce it, but it's a grapefruit beer over in Germany. And I really super like it. And I really shouldn't drink it, but it goes down so smooth on a hot June or July day. Well, Christine actually mentions Schwann's chocolate marshmallow ripple. Oh my gosh, she says. I could eat the whole tub. I don't think we need to talk about ice cream anymore. I love myself a good ice cream. I love a good pretzel, though. I will admit. I don't know why I picked Rice Krispie treat and Mickey Premium ice cream bar for this or that comparison. I just think it's really kind of cool. Chris actually mentions a lot of people don't know that a lot of their local beer stores now carry that grapefruit beer. Yes, actually, our local we've got like a couple different liquor stores in town, and one of them carries it. I think. I haven't tried it yet. Haven't gone over there yet. Although with the holidays coming up, might not be a bad thing for me to give it a try. I like what John says here. Hard for me to buy a Rice Krispie treat when my aunt makes them really good for free. And Christine, I like how Christine thinks here. She says, since it's grapefruit, referring to the beer, that means it's good for you, right? I like to think maybe it has vitamin C in it. I don't know. Let's see. Mary also mentions they were giving away chocolate-covered strawberries at the Storybook Circus at closing. They gave us several and then gave my daughter a treat out of the case. That's awesome. And yes, Sandy, grapefruit beer does sound awesome. All right, let's go to our next this or that. This one's going to be a little bit harder. I want you to think about this for a minute. And as I said, follow the rules here for a second, okay? If you can only pick one, okay, so think about this pairing. Think about it carefully before you say something. You can only choose one of these. 7 nights at Pop Century. I'll even say any room you want at Pop Century. You don't have to say is it standard or if it's preferred. Just any room you want. 7 nights at Pop Century. Or 3 nights at the Wilderness Lodge. And that would be your only trip. No add-ons before or after. That would be your only trip for the year. 7 nights at Pop or 3 nights at the Wilderness Lodge. Now, the interesting part is, I'm actually surprised that this kind of conversation doesn't happen as often. And the reason why I say that is because, now granted, I'm not doing this comparison with any real dollar value in mind, okay? I'm not really, saying that, 7 nights at the Pop is equivalent to 3 nights at the Wilderness Lodge. I'm not saying that. So before anybody says anything, I'm just using this as a general example. Now, because there's a lot of people that always ask, should I choose this hotel? Should I choose that hotel? Should I choose this other hotel? Or should I choose between a deluxe or a moderate or a value? But a lot of times, no one ever asks, would you actually spend more time at a lower cost resort versus, a nicer resort, but you couldn't stay as long? I mean, it's a real valid question if you think about it, right? Because there's a lot of people that would like to, do some comparison. Some people really like a nicer hotel because of the amenities. There are some people that want to just stay longer and they don't really care what the resorts are like. So let's take a look what people have to say before I answer this question. So let's see here. Where did it go? Brunette starts off by saying Pop Century. Wendy also gives a vote. And Brian says Wilderness Lodge. He can only handle 1 trip. Mallory says 7 at Pop Century. It's one of the cheaper resorts, right? Absolutely. It's one of the cheaper ones. Craig says Pop. I'll take more time at Disney. Tracy says, never been to Pop or Wilderness, but I would have to go with 7 nights at Pop. Ooh, okay. I'm seeing what people are saying. Justin also mentions Wilderness. Okay. He's going for the shorter trip, nicer resort. Tricia says Pop. I heart Pop. And so Gordon says, 7 days of fun versus 3. Yeah, I'll take 7 is what he says. Let's see. Sandy actually says Wilderness Lodge is great. I'd take that in a heartbeat. And Jerry along the same line says Wilderness Lodge, please. Okay, that's kind of interesting that we're seeing a little bit of a balance here. Claudia also mentions 7 nights at Pop because a longer stay means we can experience more, make more memories, and I love the pool there. We stayed there for 5 nights this past summer. Okay, good. Brian says, I went value to stay longer, best trip ever. Okay. Now let's see. John mentions, Wilderness is my favorite lodge, but 7 nights has greater appeal, so I choose a longer stay at Pop. Christine also says 7 nights at Pop. Even if I only had 3 days at the park, I would resort hop and sit by the pool and go to downtown Disney. You still call it downtown Disney too. I still find myself every once in a while calling Disney Springs downtown Disney. It's one of those things. I try, I try to make sure I don't mess it up. It's like a Danny calling Hollywood Studios MGM still, which is kind of fun. Gordon says, barely at the resort long enough throughout the day to justify that. With the kids at their age, we're out for rope drop and back at close. If you like that question, Gordon, we're going to talk about that as a this or that in just a moment. Margie basically says, Wilderness. And Heather says, Pop for 7. So we're definitely getting, the balance here. Pop Century or Wilderness. Justin basically says Wilderness, but I've been spoiled with DVC, but I've stayed at every resort. Okay. I could see that. Albert says Pop Century. I could experience the different themes amongst the buildings. And Kimberly says, such different vibes at each, but value for longer at Pop. It's so laid back and fun. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. What would I choose? You know, this is one of those cases where I like Pop, but sometimes it really kind of depends on the trip, what I would want to do. And I think I'm at that point of our trips where I really like to stay at resort hotels that I can actually enjoy more of what's going on at the resort hotels. And as much as I like Pop, first off, my wife would say Wilderness Lodge right off the bat, mainly because Pop Century doesn't have any sort of, hot tub. And so that would actually knock it out. But I would probably have to say Wilderness Lodge. I just think, it's one of those cases for me, and the way I do Disney, I would almost rather have a shorter trip than a longer trip at a value. That's just the way I do it, because I do more stuff at the resorts themselves. It's something to really consider when you go and do your trip. I think the fewer times that you go, that's the wrong way to word it. The more that you go, and it doesn't mean more often, just the number of trips you've actually completed. I think after a while, you tend to get an idea of what kind of things you want to do at the resorts. Our very first trip was at Port Orleans Riverside. Loved it. Fell in love with it. In fact, Port Orleans Riverside is the reason why I don't like to stay at, any offsite hotel. It all started there, and I caught the Disney magic bug. It's as simple as that. But had an absolutely blast of a time. And as I said, I've stayed at the value resorts. I have my favorites between the value resorts. But as we have ranked into, probably after we hit about a dozen trips, I basically said, I really want to start really spending more time at the resort and relaxing with my family. And I found that I could do a lot of that relaxing and making a lot of memories, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the parks. I know it seems weird a little bit, but I'd rather be able to just do the things that my family wants to do in a relaxed pace. But I will say the first half dozen trips, they were marathons basically. The whole go there at rope drop, stay there till they kick you out type of thing. Do it all again. You need like 3 days of recovery time after you get home. I've done it. It's one of those things. I've done it before. I like what Christine has to say. I think all the resorts should have a large hot tub open late, like 3 a.m., so people can soak their feet after the parks. And Gordon actually makes mention here. I think in about 10 years, I would also say I'd rather prefer amenities and a nicer place. And, and he also loves Port Orleans Riverside. And Claudia also mentions, it depends on who's in your group too, on what would appeal to you more. See, it's not one of those things where it's a cut and dry answer. I know a lot of people would say, I want to spend as much time at Disney as possible, so I'm going to go for the cheaper resort. Hey, you know what? I've done that too. There have been times where, going to a different resort would cost $500 or $600 more. And that just wasn't in the budget. Again, I'm the kind of person that does not go into debt for a vacation. So if I don't have it, I don't have it. So I'll go ahead and choose based upon my budget, based upon what I want to do. And there have been times where I have downgraded my resort choices just so I can stay a little bit longer. And there are some times where I've said, no, I'm not going to sacrifice, I'm not going to sacrifice those types of things. And we'll stay at a resort for a particular period of time. So I do say that's what I would do. Let's do another one, shall we? We shall. So this is a little bit different. This goes along the lines of cost analysis and what is better for your cost. Okay. Again, only these two choices, and these two, hold on one second. Sorry about that. That was my daughter. She called me. She's returning my call. So I had to pick it up. I wanted to make sure everything was okay. All right, let's try this again. So for our next this or that, let's go ahead and stick with these two items. Now it goes along the same of, cost comparison. And I think a lot of people end up having to make this decision. And I know I've had to make this decision, so I'm sure it comes into question for many a guest. So here's the question. Do you drive or do you fly? But if you fly, you have to cut 2 days out of your trip because of how much that flight costs. Okay? Think about that. Drive and stay longer. Basically, it's drive and stay longer or fly and stay shorter. That's one of those things where I think, I know when I started driving down, I was able to stay for nearly 2 weeks because I was only spending about $400 round trip versus it would cost like $1,300 at the time. And so, but at the same time, sometimes I like to fly because, let's face it, I like to fly. And it's one of those cases where, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I've got to drive 12, 14, 16, 20 hours. My drive is about 20 to 21 hours. That's 20 to 21 hours on the road. And usually we do a 12 to 14 hour day one day, and then we do a 7-hour drive the next day, or vice versa, depending on when we go, when we're leaving, and so on and so forth. And it's one of those cases where there's a lot of different situations where I would drive. Like this past summer, we did fly because there was going to be 5 of us, and 5 of us in an SUV driving down would have been a little bit crowded. So we'll have to see how this goes. Mary says she likes to fly. Scott basically says, hey, our drive only took us 8 hours. Man, if I lived 8 hours from Disney, I would be all over that. I mean, I would get up in the morning. I'd be there just for a late lunch. Oh, yeah, I understand that. Tracy says, drive. My son has anxiety and can't fly. Hey, I totally get it. That's a great reason to fly or drive or flying at times. Christine says, we always drive. And, it's like, not a fan of flying. Hey, I get it. It's one of those things. Not everybody likes to fly. Some people don't like airports. Some people don't like sitting in the little itty bitty seats. Some people just don't like the sensation of flying. Gosh, I really understand that. John goes, fly. I'm on the West Coast. Yeah, I will say this. I have flown out to go to Disneyland, and I know that there are people that have driven out there, and it takes quite a while to drive out there. I don't think I can do it. I just don't think I can just drive that long. I just don't think so. Gordon says he flies. Drive is 24 hours for me. Then be exhausted for a day or two after that. Then marathon run and again return. I'd rather fly and be there in a couple hours. I can't disagree. This time when we go down, we're going to probably end up stopping somewhere after about 7 hours, and then long drive, get to Disney late, crash, sleep, wake up early the next morning and go hit it. The interesting part to that is I'm the one who usually drives the entire time, and I don't mind it at all. So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm also a night owl to a certain extent. So I don't mind getting up early. I don't mind staying up late. I do like that midday break. And I'd like to take a little nap, or I used to love Ellen's Energy Adventure just for the nap. I hate to say it like that, but it happens. It's one of those things. Let's see. Kimberly actually says, hey, it depends on where you drive from. New York is torture. 21 hours here too. Yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, it's about 21 hours. And my biggest stressful part, well, there's 2 stressful parts. 1, going through the mountains. People don't realize how going through the mountains, for people who don't always go through the mountains, can be a challenge. 2, Atlanta. Do I really need to say anything else? Atlanta. Anybody who's driven and had to go through Atlanta knows exactly what I'm talking about. First off, I'm going to say this right now. I love Atlanta. Wonderful city. Beautiful city. Really is. Worst traffic in the world. That's all I got to say. I'll take that back. Worst traffic this side of the Mississippi. I think LA wins the award for the worst traffic on the other side of the country, but that's a whole different point. Let's see. Mallory says, I'd rather drive just to get that little more family time and the scenery change, and anything is better than here. Don't care if we drove or fly. It's bye-bye, Ohio. The interesting part about the drive is that you do get to spend more time together. You do get to see some really cool things. And granted, while we tend to take the same route, there's actually a couple different routes that we go. And they kind of split off, depending on where we want to go, kind of splits off at Indianapolis, and then we go two different ways. It meets up back in Chattanooga. Mainly it's how we get through the mountains. That's really what it comes out to. There's no way for us to actually get around going through Atlanta. But the nice part is that we do tend to stop at different places. We tend to see friends. We tend to see family. We tend to see family, friends who are family. And you get to meet a lot of people along the way. We've stayed at the same hotels at times, and they would remember us year after year, which was really kind of cool. I mean, you talk about good customer service. When they can remember you after being there for a couple of times, it's kind of fun and interesting. I mean, it was to the point where they were recognizing Diz Truck One. They're like, oh, I knew you were coming. Or it's like, I knew that you guys were here when you got here. I'm like, how do you know that? She goes, well, I saw your truck sitting outside. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And they're like, yeah, I recognized the truck, recognized the license plate. Oh yeah, it was really cool. I'm like, okay, I got it. Let's see. I think, like Jen mentions drive, oh, this is a good one. Wendy really nails this on the head too. Depends on how much personal time off you want to use too. Absolutely. Sometimes you have more time than money. And being that I've been with my company for over 20 years, I get a lot of vacation time. And it is a use or lose it type of scenario, right? So I don't have a problem with taking a few extra days to drive. It really makes sense. And again, if I'm saving money and I'm going to enjoy myself, it's all good. Here's also the other thing. I have a Disney budget. I have something like $1,200 or $1,300 in my Disney budget slated for transportation. And you're going to say, well, why don't you just use that on some flights, Chris? Well, the nice part is I live by the motto of having my cars maintained in such a way where at any moment in time, I can hop in my car and drive down to Disney, no questions asked. So what that means is that throughout the year, I maintain both of my vehicles like a top. I mean, I make sure that everything is in perfect working order. And that's kind of how I live. So it's more than just a budget for transportation to Disney. It is literally my transportation budget. So I make sure I've got good tires, I've got good brakes, my oil is always, changed according to manufacturer specs. I use good parts and good products to keep my vehicles clean inside and out. It's just the way that I live. And that's also why my vehicles last forever practically, because I take really good care of them. And I can literally hop into my car right now. I can make it to Indianapolis before I need gas. And then I can, fill up and keep on going if I wanted to. Same thing with Diz Truck One. So that's just the way I see it. It also helps me with my family budgeting if you think about it. That's the way I look at it. So let's see. Chris is hilarious. Well, considering it would make no sense for me to fly and I can sting as long as I want, I'm going to exclude myself from this one. #local problems. Chris, sometimes we all get jealous. You and Brian and some others that are locals, although we kind of chuckle at you guys when you say it's, 45 degrees outside and cold. So we do kind of chuckle. Jen mentions flying limits how much stuff you can buy and take home. Yes, to a point. And the interesting that you mentioned that is because we actually carry a small duffel bag inside one of the bags empty. So if we get more stuff, boom, we have another bag to carry it. You fly an airline like Southwest, boom, don't have to pay for 2 bags per person. Yes, size of the products and items that you want to bring home does make a difference. There's also a lot of people that would actually like bring a bag that inside the bag would be loaded with like snacks, food items. And if you got an infant, like diapers and formula and things like that. And as those things are consumed throughout the week, it just gives you more space for more stuff, souvenirs that you would like to bring home. Craig basically says, Fly, I'm not patient enough to drive. Plus my drive would be 20 hours. I get it. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one of those. Brian is actually telling Chris here, Chris, think Disneyland for your answer. That's true. I don't think any of us would really want to drive cross country for it, but I'd be up for it if someone really wanted to challenge and sponsor me for it. I'd tell you that way. Heather says, hey, her drive is only 7-8 hours. She don't fly. It's as simple as that. Alex, like, I don't do any. I live here. That's awesome. Yep. You're also one of our local champions. That's really cool. I love, Scott's giving a great example. We left north of Atlanta around 2:30 and they were pulling in, into All-Star movies at 10:30. That is super cool. Great example. Claudia says we drive 8.5 hours. Wasn't too bad. So yeah, it is one of those cases, even Christine says my drive is 24 hours too, depending on traffic and road construction. And the road construction stuff can really be a big deal. It really can. Because I would spend like a week sporadically, I should say, to go through, and I would look up, Indiana Department of Transportation, Kentucky Department of Transportation, Tennessee Department of Transportation, Georgia Department of Transportation, and Florida Department of Transportation to see where the construction is. And I would map it out. Yes, I would actually have a paper map that I would kind of show, hey, around these parts, we may have to do some detouring if it gets backed up. Also, at the same time, my wife would use Google Maps. And she would use that and some other GPS technology to find out what kind of backups and delays we're going to experience. And if it's really bad, we go around it. It's kind of like a plane going through bad weather. We catch it beforehand, and we also calculate our fuel that way. And we actually have a very calculated, methodical way to travel. And the cool part is, especially the past several years, we've been traveling with friends in a caravan. So we would all, make sure that everybody's good. We take some breaks, this, that, and the other. It's a lot of fun. So let's go ahead. There's a lot of people that have actually mentioned that they, between driving and flying, a lot of people have a lot of different comments on it. I appreciate that. I'll probably most likely see that as I go through the show tomorrow morning. Let's go ahead and do another this or that. I don't want to necessarily clog up with my opinions on this. So this one is going to be a little different, and it's about food, okay, but not specifically something like a specific type of food. This is a little bit open to interpretation, but let's give it a try, shall we? Do you hit old favorites when it comes to your favorite eateries, and do you stick with them? Or during your vacation, do you try things that you've never tried before? So, food, restaurants, it doesn't matter what kind of restaurant. Old favorites versus new and unexplored. Old favorites or new and unexplored. What are some of your ways of looking at it? Before people go ahead and chime in, I'll go ahead and say for me and my family, we will go through restaurant menus online, and we will go ahead and see if we want to try some new things. Now, here's part of the problem. I've said this before, and I apologize for sounding a little bit redundant. My wife is like my son, not very adventurous. They don't really like to try super new things. My daughter and I, we will try anything once. I mean, seriously, we'll try anything weird once. You know, we went to restaurant Mr. Koshi in Japan. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I botched it. We went to the Teppanydo dining. And the chef offered up a piece of, what was it? It was fried steak fat. That's all it was. It was just really, really fried, crispy fat. And I went to a Teppanydo twice this past year and loved it both times. Wonderful place. The funny part about it is that the first time they offered it to other people, and I said, no, I won't. No, thanks. I don't mind. Second time I went, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And I'm glad I did. It was good, but it was different. And I don't think it would be one of those things I would eat all the time. But I had these little pieces of fried beef fat. It was actually really pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. Again, I don't think I could eat a lot of it because it was pure beef fat, but it was really good. But we do like to try things, but we do a lot of research along the lines of menu surfing and seeing if we would like it. And there are probably some things that I still need to get my wife to try, especially for some adult trips. We'll have to see how it goes. So let's see what some of our audience has to say. All right. So let's see. I'm flipping down. We got a lot of different things here. Mallory says, hey, always room for new experiences. Heather also says, I try new things each trip. And Christine says, I do a mixture of both. And actually, to tell you the truth, I do too. We do have our favorites. We do try to hit those favorites. We alternate those favorites because we want to make room for the new and different. And Tracy also says the same thing. I stick with favorites, but also try something new every trip. Scott's like, hey, enjoy a new experience. Chris actually says a little bit different. He loves to try the seasonal offerings. And I think that's really cool. You know, especially if you go down during like Food and Wine or any of the festivals that have a lot of interesting booths and things like that, has a whole bunch of different cuisines that are not normally there. That's actually a really good time to try something. And they're like really small portions. So you can take a couple bites, share it with a friend, move on. Or you can use it as, use 3 or 4 of them for a pretty sizable meal if you think about it. Kind of like that idea. It's really cool. I haven't done that in quite some time. Let's see. John also mentions, hey, I stick with old favorites. If you try something new and you don't like it, then you wasted your money. Hey, I get it. One time I tried a lamb chop over at California Grill. And I've never really had a lamb chop before. I wanted to try it. And to be honest with you, it was good, but I didn't care for it. Now you're going to say, well, Chris, why would you say it's good if you didn't care for it? It was prepared very nicely. It was good. It was flavorful. But it was one of those things I wouldn't have again. I tried it and I was like, okay, I had that meal. I don't blame the chef. I don't blame the meal. I don't blame the restaurant. I found out something I really didn't care for. I've done, and we want to know something that's only happened once in the past almost 20 years of going to Walt Disney World and trying out many different types of eateries. I take that back. The only other restaurant I don't like, and some of you have heard me say this before, when the Tomorrowland Terrace Cafe used to be the Tomorrowland Noodle Terrace, there was that was the worst restaurant ever. Period. I remember eating cafeteria food at my college that was better than that. Yeah. Craig says, both. I love Crystal Palace and tried Mama Melroses this time. Thought it was pretty good. Yeah, you got to try some things. Brunette says, I do a little of both. I'm not too adventurous. And that's okay, too. Claudia actually makes a good point. This is basically how she does Disney. With young children, I have to take into consideration what they'll eat. They aren't too picky of eaters, and they'll try everything once, but I always make sure they have a backup of something they will for sure eat. That's a good point, Claudia, because sometimes, you want to try something different. Sometimes your kids will be willing to try something different, but you got to have a backup plan. And you know what? Sometimes it means, hey, maybe splitting your meal with your child. Maybe they want to try a filet for some reason. They've never had a really high quality steak before, and you give it to them and they're like, oh yeah, this is really good. And you could go ahead and split a meal with them, especially if you're not that heavy of an eater. And then of course, if for some reason, it doesn't quite work out, no big deal. So that's what Claudia mentions. And then, you know what? I'm going to just take a moment here. I want to give a shout out to Chad. Hey, Chad, how you doing? Chad, by the way, is the host of the My DVC Points podcast. And Chad and I haven't told many people this. Chad and I had a wonderful conversation not too long ago. He and I talked for an episode on his show, which I'll be coming up as a guest on his show not too long. And I hope to have him as a guest on our show to talk more about DVC, since it is a great conversation piece. So Chad, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I hope that everything is going really, really well. Laura mentions, I'm allergic to beef and pork. Okay. So obviously you have certain things that you have to be careful of. The great part about it is that Disney does really accommodate those who have food allergies or sensitivities really, really well. So, John says, I'm kidding about my comment. I'd try new things. Okay. I see that. Heather does mention new places could become old favorites. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, there are some places that I like to go to and people wonder why, but there are some things I really do. For an example, I actually like Electric Umbrella. I know it sounds weird, right? I like it. It's one of those things. Some people don't really care for it, but it's an old favorite of mine. I actually like Sunshine Seasons. I always thought it was really good. My son actually used to like the roasted chicken there. It was really, really good. Jen goes, mixture of both old favorites, because I know I like them, but also new things. You never know. I just read this comment before, so maybe I read one over the other. I'm sorry. Scott said, hey, the Rainforest Cafe was awesome tonight. Hey, I'm glad you enjoyed Rainforest Cafe. I gotta be honest with you. The funny part is, the last time I went to Rainforest Cafe there, it was over at Disney Springs, and my wife was pregnant with my son. And the funny part was, all she wanted was a cheeseburger. And for some reason they said, no, we don't have any cheese for cheeseburgers tonight. What? That did not make a pregnant wife happy. She wanted a cheeseburger. So, I like how Brian put this. If you don't try something new, you'll never find an old favorite. Yeah, it was one of those things. Laura mentions, I love the snails at Be Our Guest. The only downfall is that there were not that many. That's interesting, because I actually tried escargot on one of the Disney cruise ships. And I think they only served, it was like 6 of them. And I have to agree. It's really, I don't think I would want to eat too many more other than that. But I got to tell you, when I had them over on the Disney Cruise Line, yeah. And after I tried them, that was so good. The next trip we took, I actually wanted to make sure I got them again, because it was just so darn stinky good. Oh my gosh. Chad mentions, I stick with the classics. I listen to so many Disney podcasts where people talk about their favorite stuff. I walk in the park with a bucket list a mile long of great things you talk about it, and I gotta try them for yourself. You gotta try them out. And, sometimes you do stick with the classics. My wife, for some reason, loves the nachos at the Cantina de San Angel. It's like, why? You can get nachos anywhere. She's like, I just like them here better. Okay. Kimberly calls it a tradition even. She says, hey, I always get a coffee and a cupcake at Electric Umbrella. Yum! It's a tradition. I like that. It's just really, really super cool. Sometimes you have to try different things. And like Angie mentioned, hey, I tried something new. The pot roast mac and cheese. Loved it. And then Disney discontinued it. Oh, that's right. They did, didn't they? And that was one of the things I wanted to try too, Angie. Oh my goodness gracious. I really honestly couldn't believe that. Let's do one more dis or dat before we run out of time tonight. So let's see. Well, how do I want to put this? Oh, I know one. I'm going to end one with something a little bit controversial. How's that for having you? Okay. What would you rather have in your Disney resort room? Okay. You ready for this? Would you rather have the small mini toiletries that you can steal and take home with you, or the big soaps that are going to be attached to the wall of the shower? What would you prefer? What is this or that in that particular situation? I have a feeling I know exactly what you guys are going to say, but I've got to hear it from you. Big soaps versus soaps you take home. What do you think? Okay. For those of you who haven't been over to the WDW community page, go ahead and check that out. I actually posted an article over from our friends over at mouseplanet.com. And they basically said, a lot of the DVC resorts are going to start getting the bigger toiletries in the showers, which includes a body wash, a conditioner, and a soap from H2O. They're actually the products I really do like. I really like H2O products. I know it's kind of weird, but I don't necessarily mind the bottles. I really don't. I know it's more environmentally friendly, this, that, and the other. I love to take them home. I love to take the little bottles home. Now, being a DVC member anyway, the fact of the matter is because we don't get, mousekeeping every day, I only have a certain amount of soaps I, get anyhow. And I kind of have to use them. So my take on it is, I end up using them anyway. It kind of doesn't matter. But we do sometimes stay not in DVC rooms, and we do have mousekeeping every day. And I really do enjoy taking some of those home. And sometimes my wife would even pack some in my go bag. So when I'm on a business trip, I could take a little bit of a Disney soap with me. So let's see what people have to say about this. All right. Mary says mini toiletries. Same for Laura. Let's see. Angie says the minis. Nancy says the small mini toiletries, hands down, more sanitary. Claudia says big soaps for big hair. I like that. Kimberly, mini shampoos, hands down, and it's not stealing. Yes, I was kind of joking around when I was saying that. I hope you understand. Hey, you can steal the soaps. No, I'm only kidding. I know it's not stealing. Chris says big ones, and they'll fit in the suitcase too. Let's see. Tracy says, I did not like the big ones stuck to the wall. I missed the small ones. Kim says, of course, the mini toiletries. Kind of like, gosh, is there any competition here? Brunette also says the toiletries. Heather says take home soaps. Chad does say just kidding to this. He goes, big soap so I can refill all my bottles. Just kidding. That's actually pretty funny. Christine actually says, I love the mini soaps and shampoos, but the ones on the walls are really convenient, so I love them now too. Okay, there you have it. Claudia says, a mom and two daughters with thick curly hair, those mini ones don't cut it. Okay, coming from a guy who's somewhat follically challenged, I can understand that. Yeah, I can see that. Brian says, mini. I'm not going to use them myself because of allergy reasons, but I bring them home for others. Let's see. Yeah, Bobby says, I love the mini ones, but there's not really enough shampoo for a whole family. Good point. You kind of have to be sparingly. And being that my daughter has really long hair, my wife has kind of long hair. I don't have a lot of hair. It's just one of those things. Let's see. What are other people saying? Let's see. Justin kind of makes a comment, and there's some humor to this. I wonder how many of the dispenser bottles have to be replaced or how many have to be refilled due to guests filling their own bottles. Who knows? Jen says small ones as well. It's kind of interesting that we all have different ways of looking at this, right? I mean, the concept is supposed to be for more environmental friendliness, and I get it. A lot of us really do like those small bottles, take home with us, share with others. Here's something else. I actually fell in love with the H2O products, and this is not a plug. They're not a sponsor or anything. I'm going to comment. I liked their products so much, I actually would buy some of them either in the Disney gift shop, or they used to have them at the local Carson's, but since that company went under, I have nowhere to get my H2O stuff locally, so now I'd have to order it online. The thing of it is that, and this is going to be a little bit surprising, when the H2O products were available both locally and at Disney, believe it or not, for basically the same product and same size, Disney was only like literally $1 more, which I thought was really kind of fair. So now, if I'm able to, I will go ahead and buy it at Disney, and I usually buy a couple bottles, and I don't use it every single day. I use other shampoos too, but that usually lasts me for, a good year. And it is one of those things. Oh, Kimberly, thank you. Alta sells it. Well, I guess, and I have an Alta that's actually local. Ooh, I am going to have to take that in consideration. I like their sea salt products. It's just really nice. I know it sounds weird, but I do like. I like to look good. I like to smell good, and the smell of that stuff is awesome. Oh my gosh, I know that's just weird. And Chad also says try Kohl's. At one time they were available there. I will have to try Kohl's too. And fortunately, Ulta and Kohl's are not too far from each other, right near our local store, which happens to also contain our local Disney store. So that is actually really pretty cool. I've had a really nice time talking about the this or that type of scenarios with everybody here tonight. And, doing solo shows, it's not one of our favorites. It's not one of the favorite things. Danny and I don't really love to do solo shows. It's one of those cases. We love to talk to people, and we love to talk to people and converse here, and then talk with our viewing audience here to have it integrated in with the show. In fact, someone once said, what kind of feeling does your show have? I said, you want to know what how our show feels like? This is it. You got a couple people sitting in a living room, sitting around the fireplace, talking Disney with about 30 to 50 or 100 different friends hanging out, joining in the conversation little by little. And everybody goes home with a smile on their face. And I hope that this conversation tonight really put a smile on your face, especially as we're getting towards a really busy time of the holidays. But, all things must come to an end. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to press this button right here. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. Alrighty. Well, thank you everybody again for joining us. I know that I didn't get to a lot of the comments tonight. We had some great discussions, but like any other time, I'll be going back through the comments. And I know that some people asked me some specific questions and made other certain comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer them shortly after the show, usually within 24 hours. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been great, but I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful, awesome day, a great evening. And until next time, make it magical. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.